Coronavirus health and safety tips. Wash your hands often. Use hand sanitizer. Wear mask. Don't touch your waist. Cover your sneezes and coughs. Avoid close contact. Use your own supplies. Clean your electronics. God bless you. Hi, meet again with me, such a blessing. Today I'm not going to tell you about a story or a fairy tale story. I'm going to tell you about an article from Brandon Murray, PhD, The Critical Importance of Human Behavior in Our Response to COVID-19. So check this out. Early in pandemic, Deborah Birx, the coronavirus response coordinator for the White House Coronavirus Task Force, reminded the public of the critical importance of individual and collective human behaviors to change the course of the COVID-19 pandemic. She said, "It's communities that will do this. There's no magic bullets. There's no magic vaccine or therapy. It's just behaviors. Each of our behaviors translating into something that changes the course of this viral pandemic over the next 30 days." The pandemic continues to profoundly change our normal life many months later. The good news is that we appear to be coming off of the devastating third wave of the pandemic. Further, vaccinations are proceeding at a decent pace, more than 2 million per day. Recently, the CDC announced guidelines for fully vaccinated individuals that begin to normalize their life. For instance, it's now okay for them to gather in very small groups with others who are also vaccinated. However, we are not home free yet. Some experts predict that early reopenings with full relaxation of public health measures in many states could be followed by a fourth wave. This once again reminds us of the importance of human behavior in combating the pandemic. Despite tireless ongoing effort until we reach level of vaccination that approach herd immunity, we are still at risk of relapse. There has been some good news on the therapy front. Clinicians have gotten much better at treating hospitalized COVID patients, leading to a drop in the death rate. Further, there are a number of new drugs that significantly alter the course of the illness. The bad news is that the continued global pandemic has resulted in the spread of many new strains of the virus. Some are more infectious and some more virulent. We still don't know for sure how effective existing vaccines will be in halting transmission of the virus. So for now, we continue to depend on human behavior to contain the spread of the virus. And according to experts, we will do so for the coming months or longer until most of the population is fully vaccinated. The challenge of depending on human behavior to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. The challenge of employing human behavior to combat a crisis of this magnitude is that behavior is often unreliable and unsustainable. We've already seen this play out in some areas of the country where people are agitating for freedom from the public health mandates of masking and distancing. Because of these challenges and the fact that a medical solution is somewhere in the future, many are asking, how do we move forward? Hmm. A good place to start is to gain a deeper understanding of why people act the way they do during times of immense stress and uncertainty. Behavior science can help inform our country of the next step we need to take to enact real, meaningful change in our country overall response to the coronavirus. In this piece, we'll explain how stress can influence our behavior, and we will share actionable insight that can be used to inform both our individual collective response to the coronavirus pandemic. So that's it for this section. We are going to the next section. The impact of stress on thinking and decision making in times of crisis. Most of us are exposed to increase in both acute in the moment and chronic consistent over the time stress. Stress can impact us in a variety of different ways, including how we process and perceive information in the world around us. As a function of evolution, we are wired to preventively notice, process, and remember emotional information over non-emotional information. For example, many of us can vividly remember that embarrassing moment from middle school. However, we might be hard-pressed to recall what we had for breakfast 3 days ago. Stress has many physiological and psychological effects. One is the heightening of our awareness of negative rather than positive information. Again, this is an evolutionary response. Humans become stressed because there is a threat in our environment. Heightened awareness of negative information increase our chances of identifying and dealing with the source of our stress. That's it. There is a large amount of emotionally negative stimuli related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Today we are seeing, hearing, and experiencing a large amount of negative and fear-inducing information, and we are more likely to retain that negative information and have it be top of our mind. That chronic exposure to emotionally negative stimuli can lead to increased stress. It can also provoke neurobiological changes that predispose us to be more likely to notice other negative stimuli. One classic example is the phenomenon of many experience after breaking up with a romantic partner. To them, it seems like every song they hear on the radio is about the breaking up or falling out of love. While this is helpful for survival in some cases, being hyper aware of animal noise while walking in the woods at night, for example, it can be very cognitively taxing for us in situations like the one we are right now. The impact of chronic stress on decision making. Chronic stress impact our decision making, obviously. In fact, even in normal circumstances, much of our behavior, including buying, is driven by a balance between two motivations. The desire to regulate how we feel right now, the need to regulate ourselves from doing something impulsive. Those two cognitive is needs operate more or less in balance with one another. This balance disrupted by negative emotions such as stress, fear, uncertainty. Under those conditions, our desire to make ourselves feel better gets amplified, and we put much less effort into controlling our impulses. That is why many of us went out and stocked up on toilet paper and other essentials when the pandemic first began. We did it even though we knew we didn't necessarily need it or could have saved it for someone else. The importance of human behavior in our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. With a deeper understanding of how stress impacts human behavior, we can start to make informed decisions about the most effective ways to move forward. There are steps we can take both individually and collectively that can enact meaningful change and help change the course of the coronavirus pandemic for the better. Individual behaviors. Individually, we can work to reduce our negative exposure and protect ourselves from becoming overly stressed by physical activity. One, physical activity, even around the home, can mitigate the production of stress hormone like cortisol. It also reduces anxiety-like symptoms. Physical activity also promotes oxygenated blood flow to the brain. This can both reduce cognitive load and promote long-term brain health. 2. Social support. Social support, social interaction provide myriad mental health benefits. Even virtual interaction via webcam or even text-based communication promote the release of oxytocin. Oxytocin is a reproductive hormone that can increase feeling of bonding and closeness. It also drives social behavior. Although these responses are mitigated for virtual rather than in-person interaction, maintaining social relationship has obvious benefit over social isolation. Third, emotion regulation. A thoughtful regulation of our emotion can be challenging, but it is very effective for our well-being. We may be tempted to turn off the news, close our laptop, and avoid as much negative information as possible. However, this strategy of emotion suppression, ignoring or pushing away our negative thought and feeling only delays and sometimes amplifies negative emotional states. Fourth, reappraisal. Reappraisal is a method of thinking critically and reframing the negative information we are exposed to and reframing how it relates to us. This way of thinking is much more beneficial to our long-term emotional health. Further, it can have protective effect when we encounter new negative stimuli. Reappraisal often takes cognitive effort, but the long-term effects are worth it. Strategies we implement to help the collective. 1. Highlight and communicate the positive when possible. As a society, we choose to focus on the highlight, the positive as much as possible. We do this both for our emotional health and also for effectiveness in our communication. Emotionally, there is a lot to feel negatively about right now. Many of us have lost loved ones, our livelihoods, and social relationship. Those things, of course, are incredibly difficult to deal with. Acknowledging those negative stressors is important. However, ruminating of them on them is harmful to ourselves and to others around us. 2. Try to not highlight negative information. Highlight negative information is a less effective communication strategy. For example, there has been ample research over the last 3 decades on anti-smoking PSAs. It shows that focus on the negative health outcomes of smoking are often ineffective at promoting smoking cessation. This is because our default response is to shut out that information. We think this can be happening to me or I don't want to see that. In some cases, those PSAs may actually prime smoking behavior because they are cue smokers to think about nicotine. More effective messaging focuses on the positive consequences of behavior change. 1. Leading a long and healthy life. 2. Protecting your loved one, and so on. Whether you are a manager, a health official, or even a parent, understand that negative information can get people's attention. However, positive information can be more effective at promoting behavior change. And the last one, mentalize on behalf of others. We are all the main character in our own story. However, getting through a crisis is a collective and social experience. It can be difficult to vigilant to the needs of the others, but putting in the effort to do so is critically important. Try not to become frustrated or hurt if your partner wants to take a few hours to read a book quietly or jump to conclusion about work ethic in the team member need to take an afternoon off to decompress. Do something even if it's small, like reminding yourself that what they need to do for themselves right now. It can be an effective way to reappraise the situation, and it help you put yourself in the shoes of someone else. Our behaviors are the best weapons to fight COVID-19 right now. As we wait the official end of the pandemic, our behaviors remain an important weapon in the fight against coronavirus. Despite its unpredictable nature, especially in times of crisis, we must find ways for human behavior to help, not hurt or hinder, or our response to the pandemic. We must take what we knew about human behavior during times of chronic stress and apply it to how we move forward as individuals and a collective. It will help us shape a response that is better suited for human behavior on that can ultimately change the course of coronavirus. References from Stephen M. Teslis, Kristen Tedinjato, Harvard Health Publishing, as Human Cognitive Neural Mechanism, Elizabeth A. Kensinger, Ellie Carmeli, Fatih Osby, James G. Gross, and the other. I hope you guys stay healthy, stay at home, and our behavior is impact to our environment. So be careful and be aware of the mandates of masking and distancing. Thank you. God bless you from such a blessing. See you when I see you.